Today, we're diving into a story that really gets behind the screaming crowds and all those platinum records. It's a super personal look at what happens when you basically win the lottery of fame, only to find out that ticket comes with a price tag you could never, ever have prepared for. Welcome to Podcasts for Busy People. Today, we're going on the journey of Louis Tomlinson, all the way from a working-class town to the absolute peak of global stardom, and then through the incredible fight to find himself after all the music stopped. Just think about that for a second. You're 24 years old. You are at the absolute pinnacle of success, totally on top of the world, and you have this realization that you'll probably never reach that height again. It's this one quote that really captures the wild paradox at the very heart of his story. So where did this all even begin? Well, it wasn't in some polished stage school, that's for sure. It was in the northern English town of Doncaster, where dreams of this scale, they must have felt like they belonged to a completely different planet. You know, the sheer unlikelihood of it all is just staggering. He described his background as 7 people crammed into a 3-bedroom house. I mean, this was not a kid who grew up expecting to be famous. He said he felt more like someone who won the lottery. And he didn't just walk into success either. He auditioned for the X Factor, failed, went back, and failed again. He even called that first rejection utterly crushing. So what on earth pushed him to try a third time? Well, it was his mother, Johanna. She was his mentor, his absolute best friend, and she was the voice that gave him this unshakable belief in himself. You know, she's the one who wouldn't let him give up on the school musical, and she's the reason he found the guts to face rejection one last time. And that third time, as we all know, it changed everything. He was put into One Direction, and life just went from 0 to 100 on this rocket ship that he had absolutely no control over. But with that incredible ascent came a pretty profound shadow. Just to give you a sense of the speed we're talking about, before their very first single, What Makes You Beautiful, was even released, it had already broken a pre-order record. People were already all in before they'd even heard what the music sounded like. It was a phenomenon from day one. But behind the scenes, a completely different story was playing out. He felt this deep, almost working-class guilt about the money and the success. The fame thing, it was alienating. It disconnected him from his friends and the life he knew. It was just a part of the job he could never really get comfortable with. And if you want to understand the personal cost, just think about this. He was away from home so much, so lost in this crazy new world, that he actually confessed he wasn't always confident which of his identical twin sisters, Daisy and Phoebe, was which. It's such a small detail, but it reveals this massive, heartbreaking distance. Inside the band, though, he managed to channel all this discomfort into a sense of purpose. As the oldest, he kind of became the protector, the big brother who would be the one to stand up to the record label and fight for the group to get a day off, or to have a voice, to be more than just some typical, polished boy band. So he had reached the summit. But then came the fall. And it wasn't just the end of the band. It was this rapid-fire succession of personal tragedies that would test him in ways he never could have seen coming. Just look at this timeline. In just 4 years, the entire foundation of his world just crumbled. The band he thought of as a brotherhood, it fractured. The career that defined him, it was over. And then the 2 unthinkable losses, his mother, who was his anchor, and then his younger sister. He talks about the end of One Direction not like a breakup, but like a death. It hit him like a ton of bricks. He said he was straight grieving for it. And he compared the loss of the band to the other kinds of grief he would unfortunately come to know all too well. In her final weeks, his mother gave him this secret duty, this promise: look after the family, and especially his sister Felicite, who she called fragile. This, right here, became his new purpose, his reason to get out of bed in the morning. And that's exactly why, when Felicity passed away just over 2 years later, the weight of it was just immense. It wasn't just grief, it was guilt. He felt powerless, like he'd let his sister down. And in doing that, he'd broken the most important promise he ever made to his mom. So after hitting the highest of highs and the absolute lowest of lows, how do you even begin to rebuild? This next chapter is all about finding a new way forward when the old maps are completely and utterly useless. Right? This is the central question of his solo journey. If you've already played to sold-out stadiums and had #1 albums all over the globe, what does success even look like anymore? How do you measure your own worth? There's this one moment that just perfectly captures the struggle. He's on stage, singing Night Changes, a song he once performed at Wembley Stadium, but now he's looking out at a room with maybe 1,200 people in it. He called it a brutal kind of poetry, the past and the present just crashing into each other in the most humbling way imaginable. So he had to completely redefine what success meant. It couldn't be about the numbers anymore because, how can you compete with a memory? It had to become this internal conversation about fulfillment, about being proud of the art, and about finding value in the work itself, not just in the awards and the charts. And this is what leads us to where he is today. This isn't just a story about recovery. It's about a complete redefinition of who he is, from a pop star into a man who truly knows his own worth. Just look at this transformation. His purpose shifted from being on stage to taking care of his family, guiding them through this unimaginable grief. He finds real joy in being a father and a partner. He says he finally feels like he's on the home straight to being happy, and he's no longer defined by that lottery win, but by the man he's actually become. And all of this, it comes together in his music. He feels like he's finally making the art he was always meant to create. And really, it took all of this, the highs, the lows, the grief, the rebuilding, for him to finally find the confidence to step out from the band's shadow and just say, yes, I'm an artist, on his own terms. And that kind of leaves us with a question for all of us, doesn't it? Louis's journey was extraordinary, for sure, but the core of it is pretty universal. When all the external validation disappears, when the noise finally fades away, how do we define our own success and our own worth? What's left when it's just you?